A quiet suburban town. A loving wife. A devoted husband. A close-knit family. But behind the picture-perfect facade, something sinister was brewing. On a cold autumn morning, 32-year-old Jessica Parker vanished without a trace. One moment she was at home, going about her day like any other. The next she was gone. No goodbye. No explanation. Just missing. Her car was still parked in the driveway. Her phone, left on the kitchen counter. Even her purse, with her wallet and keys inside, sat undisturbed. It was as if she had stepped out for a moment and never returned. Her family was frantic. Friends, neighbors, and the entire town of Crestwood, Ohio, came together, desperate to find her. But as the investigation unfolded, so did a chilling secret. Jessica's husband, Ryan Parker, the man who should have been devastated, the man who should have been leading the search, was hiding something. Something unthinkable. Jessica's own sister, Megan Taylor, wasn't just her best friend, she was her husband's lover. And just days before Jessica disappeared, she had found out. What really happened to Jessica Parker? Did she leave on her own? Or did she know too much? Stay with me because this story is about to take a dark and unexpected turn. Hey everyone, welcome back to Crime Stories. If you're new here, we dive deep into real-life true crime cases. The ones that keep you up at night, the ones that make you question just how well you really know the people closest to you. For those of you who have been here before, welcome back. Your support means the world, and I love having you along for these deep dives into some of the most shocking cases. If you haven't already, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss an episode. And if you enjoy content like this, don't forget to hit the like button. It helps more people find these stories. Now let's get back to Jessica Parker's case, because trust me, the deeper we go, the darker it gets. Before Jessica Parker vanished without a trace, before her name was whispered in hushed conversations across Crestwood, before her face was plastered on missing person posters, she was simply Jessica, a devoted wife, a loving sister, and a woman who, by all accounts, had built a life filled with love, trust, and family. But beneath that picture-perfect facade was a story of betrayal, deception, and secrets that would eventually shatter everything she had ever known. Jessica Parker was 32 years old, a woman who many in Crestwood admired. She wasn't just someone's wife or sister, she was a person who lit up a room when she walked in. Born and raised in Crestwood, Ohio, Jessica was the kind of woman people described as kind-hearted, dependable, and full of life. She had always been close with her younger sister, Megan Taylor, and the two had the kind of bond many siblings wished for. Jessica was the responsible one. The one who always had a plan, always showed up, always gave more than she received. She worked as a marketing manager for a local firm and had spent years building her career. She was well liked by her colleagues, respected by her boss, and always willing to mentor younger employees. But Jessica's true pride and joy was her marriage to Ryan Parker. They had been together for nearly a decade, and to those on the outside, they were the perfect couple. Jessica often talked about how lucky she was to have a husband like Ryan. A man who supported her, made her laugh, and was her rock through life's ups and downs. But Jessica had no idea that her rock was crumbling beneath her feet. On the surface, Ryan Parker was everything a woman like Jessica could have wanted. He was 35 years old, handsome in a clean-cut, all-American way, and had a steady job as a construction project manager. He was charismatic, well-spoken, and charming, the kind of man who could win over a room with a smile. To the outside world, Ryan and Jessica's marriage seemed strong. They went on vacations together, hosted dinner parties, and were the couple everyone thought had it all figured out. But what no one saw, what Jessica herself failed to see for far too long, was that Ryan had been living a double life. Behind closed doors, Ryan was not the devoted husband he pretended to be. He was deceptive, selfish, and reckless. He craved excitement, and somewhere along the way, he decided that his wife wasn't enough. His affair with Megan Taylor, Jessica's own sister, was not a one-time mistake. It wasn't a fleeting indiscretion. It was a full-blown, deeply entwined relationship that had been going on for over a year before Jessica ever found out. And what made it worse? Megan wasn't just an affair. She was the other woman who lived inside Jessica's own family. If Jessica was the responsible, dependable sister, Megan Taylor was the wild one. She was 30 years old, just 2 years younger than Jessica, but in many ways they couldn't have been more different. Where Jessica was careful and thoughtful, Megan was impulsive and reckless. Megan had always been the type to push boundaries, take risks, and chase excitement. She was a bartender, working nights at a popular local bar in Crestwood, and while she was good at what she did, she had never been as focused on long-term stability as Jessica. For most of their lives, Jessica had taken care of Megan. often acting more like a mother than a sister. She bailed her out of bad relationships, helped her with money, and even let her stay in her home when Megan was struggling. Jessica never would have imagined that the very sister she had always protected would be the one to destroy her marriage and possibly her life. Megan and Ryan's affair was not an accident. It wasn't a drunken mistake or a lapse in judgment. It was deliberate, secretive, and it had been happening right under Jessica's nose. And when Jessica found out, everything changed. In the days leading up to Jessica's disappearance, there were signs that, in hindsight, her loved ones wished they had noticed sooner. Her best friend, Sarah Monroe, later recalled that Jessica hadn't been herself. She had been distracted, withdrawn, and unusually quiet. When Sarah asked if everything was okay, Jessica simply smiled and brushed it off. Her parents, Linda and James Taylor, also noticed a shift. Jessica had always been the one who kept the family together, the one who called every Sunday, sent birthday reminders, and made sure holidays were special. But in the weeks before she disappeared, she had been distant. And then there was Megan and Ryan. Friends and co-workers later admitted that they had noticed something strange between them. Ryan had always been overly familiar with Megan, laughing too hard at her jokes, standing too close, whispering in her ear at family gatherings. And Megan? She had a way of acting territorial around Ryan, even when Jessica was right there. Some people saw it. Some people even suspected. But no one said a word, because no one thought it would lead to something like this. On October 12th, Jessica Parker was seen for the last time. She had spent the morning at home, sending emails for work, making coffee, and, according to her neighbor, pacing in her backyard while on the phone. Around noon, she was spotted at a local grocery store. The cashier remembered her because she seemed tense, distracted, like she had a lot on her mind. At 3:15 p.m., she was seen pulling into her driveway. By 5:30 p.m., Ryan came home from work. And by 7 p.m., Jessica Parker was gone. No one heard from her again. Her car, her phone, her purse, everything was left behind. The only thing missing was Jessica herself. And when the truth finally came out, it shocked everyone. Was Jessica's disappearance a desperate escape from a betrayal she couldn't bear? Or was there something much, much darker at play? Because someone in her life knew what had happened to her, and they were keeping a terrible secret. This is just the beginning. Stay tuned as we dive into the night Jessica disappeared, what Ryan and Megan claimed happened, the inconsistencies in their stories, and the moment police realized that something wasn't right. And if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to Crime Stories so you never miss an update on this case. Infidelity destroys marriages every day. But when the betrayal comes from the one person you trust most, and the one person who should be off limits, it doesn't just break a heart. It shatters an entire world. For Jessica Parker, discovering her husband's affair would become the catalyst for her sudden and unexplained disappearance. But how did she find out? And what happened in the days that followed? Let's go back to the moment Jessica's perfect life crumbled. It's often said that cheaters always slip up eventually. Ryan Parker and Megan Taylor had been careful. For over a year, they had hidden their relationship behind secrecy, stolen moments, and elaborate lies. They never texted anything incriminating. They never met in public. They always had an airtight excuse for their whereabouts. But no matter how careful they were, secrets have a way of surfacing. And for Jessica, it happened on an ordinary Tuesday evening. She was going through their shared laptop, looking for some old vacation photos, when she stumbled upon a folder labeled Work Documents. But inside there were no spreadsheets, no reports. Instead, she found dozens of emails, messages between Ryan and Megan. At first, they seemed innocent, short exchanges about seeing each other at family gatherings. But the deeper she scrolled, the more intimate the messages became. Flirty jokes, inside references, late-night confessions. And then one email changed everything. "I can't stop thinking about last night. The way you looked when you said my name. I need you." Jessica felt her stomach drop. Her fingers went cold. The date on the email? Last week. It was undeniable. Her husband, the man she had built a life with, was having an affair. And the woman he was sleeping with? Her own sister. No one knows exactly what Jessica felt in that moment. Was it shock? Rage? Heartbreak? Maybe it was all three. But what we do know is that Jessica didn't stay quiet. That very night, she confronted Ryan. According to neighbors, the argument was loud enough to hear through the walls. Jessica's voice was shaking with fury, betrayal dripping from every word. Ryan, caught off guard, at first tried to deny everything. But Jessica had proof, emails, dates, times. There was no way out of it. Eventually Ryan broke down. He admitted to the affair but begged for forgiveness. And then there was Megan. Jessica wasted no time. She called her sister, demanding answers. Megan didn't deny it. She barely apologized. Instead, she tried to justify it. She told Jessica that it just happened, that she and Ryan had fallen in love, that she never meant to hurt her. But Jessica wasn't interested in excuses. That night, she told Ryan, "We're done. Pack your things and get out." She told Megan, "You're dead to me." Jessica had been broken, betrayed, and humiliated. But she wasn't weak. She was ready to start over, to leave them both behind. She was done with Ryan, done with Megan, and she wanted them out of her life for good. But what Jessica didn't know was that Ryan and Megan weren't done with her. After the affair was exposed, everything changed. Jessica stopped answering Megan's calls. She refused to speak to Ryan except to discuss their separation. She wanted to move on, but Ryan and Megan weren't ready to let go. Ryan's behavior grew unpredictable. He went from begging for forgiveness one moment to furious outbursts the next. He told friends that Jessica was trying to ruin his life. He accused her of being cold, vindictive, and unforgiving. But the truth was Ryan was losing control. 4 years, he had balanced 2 women, playing the role of the perfect husband while indulging in his secret affair. Now, everything was crumbling. Jessica was pulling away, and Ryan didn't like that. And then there was Megan. Despite everything, Megan and Ryan continued seeing each other. But the affair, once thrilling and secretive, was now something else entirely. Jessica's anger had turned Megan defensive. Ryan's stress had turned Megan paranoid. And their relationship, once built on secrecy and passion, was now built on something darker: guilt, resentment, and desperation. Friends would later say that Megan felt trapped. She was no longer the exciting, other woman. She was the reason Ryan's marriage had ended, the reason Jessica had cut ties with her own sister. And most of all, Jessica was still in the picture. She was still there, still existing, still standing in the way of Megan and Ryan's new life together. And that's when the tension reached a dangerous boiling point. On the night before Jessica disappeared, a final confrontation took place. According to a neighbor, Jessica was seen outside her home arguing with Ryan and Megan. The details of that fight are unknown, but one thing was clear. It was heated, it was emotional, and it was the last time anyone saw Jessica alive. The next morning she was gone. No phone call, no goodbye, no sign of a struggle, just vanished. Ryan told police that Jessica had packed a bag and left on her own. Megan claimed she hadn't seen Jessica in days, but friends and family didn't believe it. Jessica wasn't the type to disappear without telling someone. Jessica had plans. She had a future. She wouldn't just walk away. So where was she? And what did Ryan and Megan know that they weren't telling? Because one of them was lying. And the truth? The truth was far darker than anyone could have imagined. Jessica Parker's disappearance was no accident. Was it premeditated? A crime of passion? A moment of blind rage? In the next part of this series, we break down the investigation, the suspicious evidence, and the holes in Ryan and Megan's alibi. Because the deeper police dug, the more their stories started to fall apart. Stay tuned. And if you haven't already, subscribe to Crime Stories, because this case, it's far from over. Jessica Parker's disappearance was not an accident. In a case like this, every minute counts. The last hours before someone vanishes often hold the key to the truth. And in Jessica's case, those final hours paint a chilling picture. One filled with suspicious behavior, conflicting stories, and a husband whose actions only raised more questions. Let's break down the night Jessica was last seen and the tangled web of lies that followed. It was a Friday night in Crestwood, Ohio. Jessica had spent the day running errands, responding to emails, and making plans for the weekend. To the outside world, nothing seemed out of the ordinary. But for Jessica, everything had changed. She had just uncovered her husband's affair. She had cut her sister out of her life. She had demanded that Ryan move out. And that night, something happened that no one saw coming. 7:15 p.m., Jessica seen at home. A neighbor reported seeing Jessica outside, pacing on her front porch, talking on the phone. She looked agitated, her voice was raised. 7:45 p.m., the argument. Witnesses say Ryan's car pulled into the driveway. Jessica and Ryan were heard arguing loudly inside the house. A woman's voice, believed to be Megan's, was also heard. 9 p.m., silence. The shouting stopped. The lights inside the house went dark. 9:30 p.m., Jessica texts her friend. Jessica sent a text to her best friend Rachel. "I need to get out of here. Let's talk tomorrow? But that call never happened, because by morning Jessica was gone. 10:15 p.m. Ryan seen outside. A neighbor spotted Ryan taking trash bags to his car. He left the house alone, and didn't return for nearly 2 hours. Midnight, Jessica is officially missing. From this moment on, no one would ever see Jessica again. By the next morning, Jessica was gone. No calls. No texts. Nothing. When her best friend Rachel couldn't reach her, she drove to Jessica's house. That's when she saw Ryan outside acting strangely. When Rachel asked about Jessica, Ryan's response was cold and dismissive. Ryan's story. He claimed Jessica packed a bag and left on her own. He said she was upset and needed time to think. He insisted she'd probably come back in a few days. But something felt off. Jessica wasn't the type to leave without telling anyone. And what about Megan? Megan's story. She told police she hadn't spoken to Jessica in days. She claimed she had no idea she was missing until Ryan told her. She said Jessica was always dramatic and probably just needed space. But here's where things don't add up. 1. A neighbor heard Megan arguing with Jessica the night before she vanished. 2. Ryan was seen driving away late at night, hours after their fight. 3. Jessica's car was still parked in the driveway, but her phone and wallet were gone. None of it made sense. And when police started digging deeper, Ryan's behavior became even more suspicious. From the moment Jessica disappeared, Ryan acted less like a grieving husband, and more like a man with something to hide. Here's what he did in the days following her disappearance. 1. He didn't report her missing. Jessica's family had to file the missing person report, not Ryan. When police asked why he hadn't called them, he shrugged it off and said, "She needed space. I thought she'd come back." 2. He cleaned the house, top to bottom. Friends who stopped by noticed the house smelled like bleach. The couch Jessica and Ryan had argued on? Gone. The bedroom carpets? Steam cleaned. 3. He deleted text messages. Police checked Ryan's phone. Many of his recent texts with Megan were missing. When asked about it, Ryan said, "I clear my phone all the time." For he was caught in a lie. Ryan told police he was home all night. But security footage from a nearby gas station showed his car on the road after midnight. When confronted, Ryan changed his story, saying, "All right, I went out for a drive. I needed to clear my head." 5. He cashed out Jessica's bank account. Just 2 days after she vanished, Ryan withdrew $5,000 from their joint account. He claimed it was to pay bills, but Jessica's friends said she had never mentioned any financial trouble. The pieces weren't adding up. Jessica didn't just vanish. Something happened to her that night. And Ryan? He knew more than he was letting on. Ryan's behavior wasn't just suspicious, it was alarming. His lies, his erratic actions, his failure to report Jessica missing. It all pointed to one terrifying question. Did Ryan Parker do something to his wife? And if so, did Megan help him cover it up? Because one thing was clear. Jessica didn't just leave. She was taken. And someone out there knew exactly what happened. The investigation, the shocking forensic evidence, and the moment police started to crack Ryan's alibi. Because Ryan thought he had the perfect cover story. But as detectives soon discovered, no secret stays buried forever. Jessica Parker didn't just vanish, she was erased. At first, her disappearance seemed like a mystery. But when investigators took a closer look, they found a trail of deception, contradictions, and damning evidence. We're breaking down the investigation into Jessica Parker's disappearance, from the missing person report to the red flags that turned her husband into the prime suspect. Saturday morning, 9 a.m., Jessica's best friend, Rachel Davis, called her again and again. No answer. By noon, she was growing worried. Jessica had sent her that ominous text the night before. "I need to get out of here. Let's talk tomorrow." But tomorrow had come, and Jessica was nowhere to be found. Rachel drove to Jessica's house and found Ryan Parker standing in the driveway, arms crossed, looking irritated. "Rachel, where's Jessica?" "Ryan, I don't know. She left." "Rachel, left? What do you mean?" "Ryan, she packed a bag and took off. Needed space or whatever." Something about his tone sent a chill down Rachel's spine. Jessica would never leave without telling her. By 5 p.m., Rachel called Jessica's parents, who immediately contacted the Crestwood Police Department. The first thing investigators found suspicious? Ryan never reported his wife missing. That's not normal. When a wife vanishes without a trace, the first person authorities turn to is the husband. Ryan Parker's behavior didn't scream worried spouse. It screamed guilt. But police couldn't prove anything yet, so they launched a search effort. Flyers with Jessica's face went up around town. Volunteers searched parks, hiking trails, and wooded areas near Crestwood. Local businesses reviewed their security footage to see if she had been spotted. But nothing turned up. Jessica had vanished, and police were left with more questions than answers. Detectives sat down with Ryan to get a clearer timeline of what happened that night. That's when the contradictions started piling up. 1. Ryan's alibi falls apart. Ryan told police he was home all night. But surveillance footage from a gas station 2 miles away told a different story. At 12:47 a.m., a camera captured Ryan's car pulling into the station. He bought a bottle of water, a pack of cigarettes, and bleach. Detective, you told us you never left the house. Ryan, all right, I forgot. I went for a drive. Detective, at nearly 1 a.m.? Ryan, yeah. I needed to clear my head. Problem? Ryan hated cigarettes. So who was he buying them for? 2. The phone records don't match. Jessica's phone activity stopped at 9:30 p.m., right after her text to Rachel. But Ryan's? It told a very different story. At 10:12 p.m., Ryan called Megan. At 11:45 p.m., Megan's phone pinged near Ryan's house. At 1:20 a.m., Ryan's phone was off for nearly 45 minutes. Why would someone turn their phone off unless they didn't want to be tracked? 3. The trash bag discovery. Remember when Ryan was seen taking out the trash the night Jessica disappeared? Detectives went through his garbage. They found a section of carpet cut from the bedroom, a towel stained with something dark, burned pieces of paper, possibly Jessica's journal. But the most disturbing discovery? A piece of fabric. One that looked a lot like the shirt Jessica was wearing the night she disappeared. With inconsistent alibis, suspicious purchases, and evidence disappearing, investigators knew one thing for certain. Jessica Parker didn't leave on her own. The problem? They still had no body. And Ryan Parker? Wasn't talking. 4 weeks, Jessica Parker's disappearance had Crestwood on edge. Her family was desperate for answers. Her husband, Ryan Parker, and her sister, Megan Taylor, stuck to their stories. But detectives? They weren't buying it. And then they found something. Something that changed everything. This is the moment the case broke wide open. It had been almost a month since Jessica went missing. With no body and no confession, investigators were running out of leads. But then, a local maintenance worker found something in a Crestwood parking lot. A burner phone in a storm drain. At first glance, just another lost phone. But when detectives powered it on, they found a series of chilling texts. The messages were between Ryan Parker and Megan Taylor. And they told a very different story than the one Megan had been telling police. Here's what they found. Megan, 10:04 p.m., the night Jessica vanished, you need to handle this. Ryan, 10:06 p.m., I will. Just stick to the plan. Megan, 10:45 p.m., I can't do this. What if someone finds out? Ryan, 11:12 p.m., no one will. Just don't say anything. Investigators immediately brought Megan in for questioning. And this time, she cracked. 4 weeks, Megan had insisted that she had nothing to do with Jessica's disappearance. But now, she was caught in a lie. Detectives sat her down. Detective, you told us you last spoke to Ryan 2 days before Jessica disappeared. Megan, that's right. Detective, then why do we have text messages between you and Ryan the night she vanished? Megan's face went pale. She took a deep breath. And then, she broke down. Megan admitted that she was at Ryan's house the night Jessica disappeared. She claimed that when she arrived, Jessica was already gone. Megan, he told me she left after a fight. But I didn't believe him. Detective, did you see Jessica that night? Megan, no. I swear. But I think something happened. Then she said something that sent chills down the room. Megan, Ryan told me, it's handled. Megan's confession was explosive. But detectives still weren't sure if she was telling the full truth. She claimed that Ryan had acted alone. That she had no idea what really happened to Jessica. But then, a new piece of evidence surfaced. One that proved Megan wasn't as innocent as she claimed. And when investigators uncovered it, Megan Taylor? But now, detectives had 2 prime suspects, her husband, Ryan Parker, and her sister, Megan Taylor. With damning text messages, contradictory alibis, and a confession full of holes, prosecutors had enough to make their move. It was time to bring them in. But what unfolded next left everyone stunned. It started early one morning when police arrived at Ryan Parker's house. He was calm, too calm, when officers knocked on his door. Detective Ryan Parker, you're under arrest for the murder of Jessica Parker. Ryan's expression barely changed. But as they let him out in handcuffs, neighbors heard him mumble one chilling sentence. You'll never find her. That same day, police also arrested Megan Taylor, charging her as an accomplice. But Megan? She wasn't going down without a fight. The trial was the most explosive case Crestwood had ever seen. Prosecutors painted Ryan Parker as a jealous, controlling husband who couldn't stand the thought of losing Jessica. They argued that Megan helped cover it up, texting Ryan before and after Jessica vanished. Went from witness to suspect. 4 months, Jessica Parker's disappearance haunted Crestwood. But when Megan took the stand, she flipped the script. Megan, Ryan told me he would leave Jessica for me. But that night, something changed. Prosecutor, what do you mean? Megan, voice shaking, he said she found out about us. He said she was in the way. For the first time, Megan admitted she knew Jessica wasn't coming back. But then, she dropped a bombshell. Megan, I wasn't the only one who knew. Megan claimed that Ryan's best friend Eric Dawson had helped get rid of Jessica's body. Eric had never been on the police's radar. Until now. After weeks of emotional testimony, the jury deliberated for days. Finally, the verdict came in. Ryan Parker, guilty of second-degree murder. Sentenced to 40 years in prison. Megan Taylor, convicted of obstruction of justice. Given 5 years. Eric Dawson? Never charged. Despite Megan's claims, there was no forensic evidence tying Eric to the crime. And Jessica? Her body was never found. Did justice really win? Ryan Parker was behind bars. Megan Taylor would serve her time. But with no body, no clear motive, and lingering questions. Many believe the truth about Jessica Parker's fate died with Ryan's secrets. What do you think? Was Megan telling the full truth? Did Eric Dawson get away with something? And most chilling of all, where is Jessica Parker? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Subscribe to Crime Stories for more cases that keep you questioning what really happened. The trial was over. Ryan Parker was sentenced to 40 years for the murder of his wife, Jessica. Megan Taylor was serving 5 years for covering up the crime. In Crestwood? It would never be the same again. But while the courts had spoken, Jessica's family and friends were left to pick up the pieces. Because even with Ryan behind bars, the biggest question remained. Where is Jessica? For Jessica's parents, the loss was too much to bear. Her mother, Linda Parker, once believed Ryan was the perfect husband for her daughter. Now, she couldn't even say his name without tears in her eyes. Linda Parker, I just want to bring my daughter home. I don't care what happens to him. I just want Jessica back. Jessica's father, James Parker, refused to speak at the sentencing. Instead, he stood at the back of the courtroom, silent, stone-faced, watching as Ryan was led away. But for Megan Taylor's side of the family, it was just as devastating. Her parents didn't defend her. They sat in the courtroom shaking their heads, devastated that their daughter had been involved at all. Megan's father, she wasn't raised to do something like this. I don't know who she became. Jessica's best friend, Erica Lawson, struggled the most. She had warned Jessica about Ryan years ago. But Jessica always said the same thing. Ryan would never hurt me. Now that sentence haunted Erica every single day. Ryan never confessed to where Jessica's body was. Even after sentencing, he refused to talk. And police? They never found a single trace of Jessica. No remains, no personal items, nothing. So people started to ask, did Ryan have help getting rid of Jessica? Was Megan more involved than she admitted? And did Eric Dawson, the man Megan claimed helped cover it up, get away with something? With no physical evidence, prosecutors couldn't charge anyone else. And that left Jessica's case incomplete. Her parents had to bury an empty casket. Her friends held memorials with no closure. And Crestwood was left wondering, what really happened to Jessica Parker? Jessica Parker was smart, kind, and trusting. But she never saw the danger in her own home. This case raised bigger questions about relationships, warning signs, and the dark side of trust. Could someone have stopped this before it was too late? How do you recognize when love turns into control? And when betrayal runs this deep, who can you really trust? If there's one lesson from Jessica Parker's story, it's this. Sometimes the people closest to you are the ones you should fear the most. What do you think? Should Megan Taylor have gotten a longer sentence? Did Eric Dawson play a bigger role than the police realized? And most chilling of all, will Jessica Parker ever be found? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Subscribe to Crime Stories for more cases that keep you questioning what really happened.